Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to Josh Does Coding. In today's tutorial, we're going to continue on with our enemy spawner and get enemy spawning in random locations around the spawner instead of at the spawn location. If you did not check out episode 1 of this series, I highly recommend you do. I'll leave a link in the description. Now let's hop straight into it. So we are going to go ahead and open our enemy spawner that we created last episode. And you can see this is what we did last time, just a very simple spawner. We have a timer setting or going off every 5 seconds that is spawning an actor or an AI at this spawn actor's location. Or at this enemy spawner's actor location. Now, we want to randomize this. Maybe we don't want it to spawn right where the spawner is every single time. An example of this would be Call of Duty Zombies. There is, say, in a room, there's 4 different windows, and zombies can spawn in 4 different locations. Now, one possible way of doing that is just place 4 enemy spawners in each location. Or you can have a sort of spawn manager that has 4 points and decides which point to spawn a zombie at randomly. The other option is to just have it spawn at a random location around this actor. So we're actually going to go ahead and cover both of those. So first we'll start with just getting a random points around this actor's location and spawning it at an area inside of this area that we set up. So the way we do that is we are just going to just drag spawn AI from class down so we have a bit of space. And we're just going to delete get actor location. Also going to drag begin play down a bit just so we have a bit more space to work with. So the way we do this is we'll search get actor location. You're going to want to right click this return value and you're going to want to select split struct pin. Now this will let us access the X, Y, and Z directly from this vector. And again, if you did not know, a vector is a 3D, I guess we'll just say line. We'll go with a 3D line that contains an X, Y, and Z. So what we want to do is say we want to get a random point around this actor on the x-axis. So how can we do this? Well, if you right click on the event graph and search for random float in range, we can get this node here. And you can see it has a minimum and a maximum. So the minimum is the minimum number that this random float will be, and the maximum is the maximum number this random float will be. So we'll say the minimum is negative 500. And we'll say the maximum is 500. So we'll get a number between negative 500 and 500. What we'll do is we'll now drag out this get actor locations X, and we'll just say add, and we'll say get actor location X plus this return value. So say this actor is at 0 along the x-axis, and we get a random number of a negative 100. We will now spawn this enemy at negative 100 along the x-axis instead of at 0. Now we also want to do the same for the y-axis. So again, we're going to get a random float in range. You can just copy and paste this one. And we'll do the same for y. Now I'm going to do a reroute node here. If you don't know, a reroute node is a way to keep your graph organized. And I will just, again, say plus. So now we are doing the exact same thing we did for x on the y-axis. But we only have x and y done right now. Now in our case, we do not want to randomize the z value because, well, we have a flat surface. Maybe we don't want an enemy spawning 100 feet off the ground and falling down when they spawn. So what we can do is create a new variable on the left side here. We'll create a new variable and we'll call it enemy spawn location. we are going to set it as a vector. So to do that, you just click this little box here, select vector. And what we'll do is we will drag it in out. So you can just click on it and drag it into the graph and set enemy spawn location. What you want to do is you want to link up this spawn enemy custom event to this set, and then this set to the spawn AI from class. You'll also want to get the return value of the set enemy location and plug it into the spawn AI from class location. We will then again want to right click and split the struct pin for the input of this set vector. Now what we can do is say X goes into the X, Y goes into the Y, and again we'll use a reroute here to keep it clean. We could say Z, and we'll do another reroute. Again, keep it clean. And the Z goes into the Z. So we're getting a random value for the X and Y and just using this actor Z. Now, if we compile and save this, and we just run the game in simulate mode here, you can see that the enemy spawner is right here, but the enemies are going to be spawning in at a random location around it. You can see this enemy spawned over here. The next enemy spawned over here. And the third enemy spawned all the way over here. So you can see we're now getting a random points around this actor's location. So that is how you go ahead and get a random point around the actor's location and spawn an enemy at that point. Now, like I said, you can also do this by setting locations ahead of time and then randomizing which location the enemy spawns at between those, say, 4 set locations. So if this is what you wanted, the random location, congratulations, it's now working. You can click off the video. We'll now go over, I'll just copy and paste this so it's out of the way, how to set up 4 random points and spawn an enemy between those 4 random points. So there's a few ways you can do this. The way I'm going to do it is just have it all contained inside of this one enemy spawner actor. So to do this, we're going to add a new component, and we are going to search for a scene component. Now a scene component is just an empty component that contains a transform, which is what we want because we're going to want to get the location off of the scene component. So we're going to rename this component to enemy spawn location. Scene component. Since we can just name this enemy spawn location, but since we already have this enemy spawn location vector from this, I have to name it something. Now we'll just copy and paste this, let's say 3 times, so we have 3 different points. So how can we decide which one of these 3 points we want the enemy to spawn at? Well, we can right click on the event graph and say random integer in range. And again, just like the float, you have a minimum value and a maximum value. We'll leave the minimum at 0 because remember, in coding, you always start at 0, not 1. And we'll say that the max is 2. Now, if you really wanted, you could do minimum 1 and maximum 3. But again, best practice is always to start at 0. So, off of this return value, we're going to get a switch on int node. We're going to connect spawn enemy to the switch on int node, and we're going to click add pin 3 times. So you can now see it has a 0, a 1, and a 2. This is basically saying what we want to happen if this value is 0, what we want to happen if this value is 1, and what we want to happen if this value is 2. So let's start with 0. We'll say if it's 0, we will get the, you'll have to drag out from this enemy spawn location scene component and get world location. So again, we're getting the world location of our enemy spawn point scene component. We are then going to set our enemy spawn location. If you didn't watch the first parts and you missed this, you'll have to create a new variable called enemy spawn location and set it as a vector. And we will plug in this get world location into this enemy spawn location. We'll connect 0 to the sets, and we'll connect set to the spawn from AI. We'll then drag in this enemy spawn location. We'll select get enemy spawn location, and we'll connect it to the location of the spawn AI from class. What this is saying is that if this random value is 0, we will get the location of our 0 scene component, and that's where we will spawn this AI. Now we can do the same for 1, 2, and however many others you have. So again, we'll just copy get world location and set enemy location, and we'll paste it twice. So again, we just copied world location and set enemy spawn location. We did not copy scene component. The reason is we're just going to drag in scene component 1, and we'll connect this. We'll connect scene component 1 to the set for number 1, and again, we'll connect it here. And for the set for number 2, we'll get enemy scene component 2, and we'll set it here. Now, all that's left to do is actually decide where we want this point to be. So now, in the outliner, if you click on your enemy spawner, select the scene component, we can say, we can move our first scene component, say, here, our second scene component over here, and our third scene component down here. Now, when we simulate, after 5 seconds, the first enemy will spawn in, and you can see it spawned in up top here. Now, when the second enemy spawns in, it will spawn at another random point, maybe the same one. You see this time, it spawned in at the same location. So if we wait another 5 seconds and let another enemy spawn in, well, it spawn at the same location too. So if we wait another 5 seconds, and it spawn at the same location. Sooner or later, it's going to spawn at a different location. Unless we miss something here. Ramp value between 0 and 2. Gotta make sure that's set. And now you can see it is spawning at different locations. It's got very unlucky with them all spawning at the first location the first time around, but you can see it is random, even though it seems to prefer this location. You can see that it is spawning over here, and I'm sure sooner or later an enemy will spawn at the other spawn point. We'll just give it some time. There it is. Round of applause for the enemy spawner. Alright, so that is how you set up random spawns between 3 set spawn locations. That's it for today's tutorial. I hope this helped you guys out. If it did, be sure to subscribe and leave a like. If you want to see more videos in the future, be sure to leave a comment down below on what you would like to see. The next part of this tutorial is going to be making a spawn in different types of enemies at random locations. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Good luck with your games.